Joining me now is Doris Wise out in California. She runs Jews Can Shoot and the Armed Jew Marketplace. She's also been very active through the years with children of Holocaust survivors. And we are going to talk about the recent news, especially from a Second Amendment context. Doris, thank you for joining me. How is your freeloading self going, to quote Jerry Brown?
Oh, I'm a proud freeloader.
Why don't we start? Tell us what that was all about. That was a bizarre comment by him.
Well, first of all, I don't know how you can call it bizarre. He is bizarre, and that's what he does. So that's what he does. He calls people names. That's what the Democrats also like to do, as you recall from the election. Hillary didn't like anybody who opposed her, so she called them deplorable. So we're deplorable freeloaders.
But this was even more Orwellian because
yes.
Hillary clearly does deplore certain types of people. It's not a complete 180. Jerry Brown, if I'm mistaken, let me know, I'm not out in California, called the people who are basically paying taxes the freeloaders as opposed to the people who are not. It was in the context of a certain tax bill he wants or a new spending increase.
He wants to increase the taxes on gas. Probably, I'm guessing. I believe. I don't know all that. I didn't know all that much. I know he wants to increase the taxes. He's got to fund the pension funds, the pension. So, and people are not surprised, not shocked to learn that people aren't happy about having their taxes increased. So he's angry about that. And people are finally speaking up, which is very unusual, in my opinion, for California.
Well, what do you mean by that? I mean, is that where you are in Ventura County, which is like a lot of people who escape from L.A.?
Right. It's quite a number of people in California, in my opinion, and it might be all over, are just not, they're either not interested or they don't bother getting really educated or they don't, so they vote, or they vote badly, or they don't vote, and that's how we end up with an entire leftist legislature in California. That's
California is
where we are.
It's so far gone. You know, I want to just talk to you a little bit. I've been learning about Kamala Harris. It's not the topic we were originally going to we were going to talk about, and we're going to get to those topics. But she's kind of icky. I mean, the way she sort of puts a smiling, pretty face on the same old left-wing Black Lives Matter stuff, and some of the prosecutions she did as Attorney General that I'm just finding out, including the people who surreptitiously recorded Planned Parenthood and did a lot of good, in my opinion. I mean, they're facing big charges.
Yes.
And, you know, to put it bluntly, she is where she is not because she achieved at any when she was young in school or in law school or in anything or in her career. Let's be fair, Hillary Clinton did very well in school, and she got into Yale Law School. I mean, not to give her compliments, but to put it bluntly, Kamala Harris spread her legs in her 20s for Willie Brown, who was in his mid to late 50s, and he hooked her up. Am I wrong about that?
I don't know. I didn't know that, actually.
Oh, you didn't know that? That's where she got where she is.
I'm not surprised, but I didn't know that. But
and he was married.
Even okay, that's not surprising either. Isn't it?
Sorry.
But I think that in California we have a big issue with that. There's nothing and no one that provides any pushback. When we do have a good candidate, we had one with my friend Susan Shelley, and we had one who was running against, I think Kamala was Tom Bacara, and they had like zero support from the California GOP group. So not only do the Democrats have all the attention and the media and everything, they also get no viable pushback.
What is the state of the Republican Party establishment, or the people who at least work for the Republican Party in California? Is there anything there, or is it just a few people?
No, there's nothing here. There's nothing here.
Do people even get together and have like dinners the way, say, the New York Republican Party would?
They get together and they have a cookie and coffee, and then they go home. It's a more of a social thing, getting together.
Uh-huh.
They might as well be playing mahjong.
It's a joke. In other words, it's over in California.
Joke. It's absolutely a joke.
Speaking of other places that are not necessarily in states that are Democratic, fortunately, this one was not one in 2016. My home state of Pennsylvania, I'm in Florida now, but which put Trump over the top. Interesting developments, and we're going to now work in your Second Amendment perspective. In Philadelphia, where Soros basically just bought the DA's office for Black Lives Matter. Scary times in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Well, Soros is doing that everywhere. That's his goal, is to create complete chaos in the United States and anarchy and have the left take over.
And Philadelphia was one step. I mean, let me read you one quote from the article in the American Thinker I just read earlier. Soros scores a triumph in Philadelphia, and it ends with, if you like what happened in Ferguson and Baltimore, after cops pulled back, you are going to love the Philadelphia effect coming in 2018. No good cops in a racist system. That's what happened. That's what people were shouting at the victory party for Larry Krasner, who's not black but was very active in Black Lives Matter. No good cops in a racist system sends quite a message to Philadelphia's finest. And I guess you can talk about that and tie that into what your real sense of purpose is about these days, Doris.
Well, part of the agenda of the left is to is for people not to be able to trust the police, and for the police to fear protecting the people. Mm-hmm. So that's spreading all over the country. It's
right.
Not just it happened here in Berkeley too.
Oh, certainly.
Okay, and that was I guess a police chief doing it on his own. He didn't need a DA to tell him to do that.
Look, the police are going to get paid the same amount if they deal with it or not, and if people are not going to force them to deal with it, why should they care? A lot of them don't even live in the jurisdictions, and I can't say I blame them if they're going to elect people.
I don't know that. Yeah, that may be the case, but I don't know that all police. I think the police do care. I don't think they mm-hmm. go into that business if they didn't care, but I think that they become fearful of doing anything, and that's what creates. It's a little it's a little drip thing that happens.
Uh-huh.
First they don't come here, and then they don't come for that, and they don't come for this, and then they don't come at all, which leaves people then the need to be able to defend themselves, which I also think plays into part of the idea of taking away our ability to defend ourselves. So if the police won't defend us, and we can't defend ourselves, you know what the result is. The result is that the government has control over everything.
And we're seeing that, and it's not just the government; it's the whole deep state, as a term people didn't even use a month or two ago.
Yeah, I didn't even know. I had never heard of it till recently. So we can't defend ourselves. We can't say what we want. The government decides what our education, how our kids are being educated, and the idea is to become dumb. Mm-hmm. Right? They're dumbing down everything. Taxes are going up, so people are forced to. They can't. They don't even have time to even read anything and learn the news or anything, because they have to put a roof over their heads and put food on the table. The government decides what we should eat, where we should pee.
Right.
If you put all of that together, think about what's going on, and it's all the same. So it's all with a goal. Nothing else matters unless if we can defend ourselves. Ultimately, they cannot do what they intend to do.
Well, I mean, they have so many ways. It's a long march, which involves things like taking over the district attorney's office, which had been run by Democrats, but it had been run in a lot of cases by Democrats. Well, there was one woman, Lynn Abraham, who did it for a long time. She was a Democrat, but she was tough on crime. There was no question about it. She was in there for a while. Then Seth Williams was the first black DA, and he had just plain old, he was a pretty straightforward Democrat. Someone thought he had a political future, but he got caught up in corruption, just stupid stuff like, free things. And he's out, and then that has enabled Black Lives Matter and Soros to take it over.
Right.
But the question, I don't really want to dwell on Philadelphia. I want to dwell on your advice for the nice people who live in these cities, what they have to think about now. We have probably another 10 minutes or so, and let's draw on your expertise and let people who are listening actually learn something. So, and you can even bring in your experience as head of Children of Holocaust Survivors, everything. Let's just give people information they can use that might not be necessarily comfortable to think about.
Okay, so it's not anything new, Adam. It is what the whole purpose of the Second Amendment is to be able to defend yourself against government overreach, and that's what all of this is about.
Yeah.
I understand that people, they don't like the idea of a gun, but I'm hoping that they like the idea of surviving, of not being starved, of not losing their jobs, of not having their house broken into by the government. So basically, that's what it boils down to. The Second Amendment protects all the other amendments, all the other rights that we have, and it keeps the government at bay from accomplishing the things they seem to be able to accomplish, that they are already accomplishing. What they haven't accomplished in its entirety is because people are still armed, which is why that is such a big focus.
Yeah, and the L.A. riots were, now 25 years ago?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And that certainly is on the minds of a lot of people where you are. It probably made a lot of people move out of L.A. Mm-hmm. And I think to add to what you said, look, if the government wants to go after you, they have the military, you're not going to beat them. But I think the real practical effect of being armed and knowing how to use arms is often what happens if the government decides it would not be politically correct to protect you because of various victim groups who are perpetually aggrieved, we won't say any names, and, for whatever considerations. That, what happens in Philadelphia the next time a black criminal is shot by a white cop and you're just a white yuppie living in Center City. Take me through that scenario.
The scenario would be that they can come after you. They'll come after you because they have to come after. They want to come after somebody and harm somebody that they see as their enemy. We've created this situation in our country that this divisiveness between people that didn't exist 8-10 years ago.
And that's Obama to a large extent.
That is absolutely Obama, and I would say that Obama was, in that respect, was probably one of the most successful presidents we've ever had. Absolutely. If you think about it, I don't say that in a positive way, but he certainly managed to accomplish so much in his 8 years that it probably is beyond his imagination.
He served his purpose.
How well he did.
But in terms of... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, in terms of, okay, now you've gotten someone's attention, what should they start thinking about? What should they start actually doing? It's mid-May now, and people are woken up, and they're saying, wait, there could be a long, hot summer. The 8 years of Obama have certainly put a lot of chips on a lot of people's shoulder, and now, hey, Trump's president, we really have an excuse to riot and go after Whitey. Your people are thinking maybe, wait, we only have a month till that long, hot summer begins. What do we do? That's where you come in, by the way.
Okay. I still, I sound like a broken record. People.
Well, assume someone's hearing you for the first time. They may not have heard our interview on YouTube, Facebook Live.
They need to support the Second Amendment. They need to not support anything that attempts to disarm citizens. If that's the least they can do, actually. Better would be to at least go take a class on self-defense, to take a class on holding a gun, on learning to use a gun, on having situational awareness, on
that's
being
huge,
prepared.
by the way. I mean, let me just mention situational awareness. Not being, so much of it is simple stuff you don't even need a course for. Like, if you're walking through an area at night where it's kind of dark and there aren't that many people there, just don't be staring at your phone the whole time. Know your surroundings. I mean, that's what you mean.
Absolutely. That's one of the first things, is people walking around now, just staring at their phones. They probably get hit by cars crossing the street, staring at them. Be aware. Have an awareness of what's going on in your neighborhood. Know your neighbors. Just be aware of what's going on. That is the more micro thing. The more macro thing, and I'm not, one isn't more important than the other, but the macro thing is that we really have to continue to understand that we are responsible for our freedoms, that we can't delegate away that other people are going to protect our freedoms. We have to protect our freedoms, and the only way to protect our freedoms is to use our freedoms. So we need to, 1, speak out, 2, know how to defend ourselves, and so on and so forth.
And
we lost that in America, in my opinion.
Yeah, so much is just living in an area where Second Amendment rights are strong, because criminals don't bother going to the trouble if they know a lot of people are armed in an area. But that's an element of free riding. Beyond that, I think people wear it on their face when they are carrying and when they know what they're doing with a weapon and are prepared to defend themselves. So without even seeing the weapon, tell me more about that, at least, that criminals can pick it up.
Yes, they can. And there are probably articles on that where they've interviewed criminals, and they're very astute. They have a good sense, because that's what they do. And we should learn our craft the way they've learned their craft. They know what they're doing, and people who have, I have the friends I have who teach martial arts, who teach Krav Maga, who are armed. The people I know, men and women, they walk differently, they talk differently, they look you in the eye differently.
Interesting.
It's a whole different thing, and so you're absolutely right about that. So my thinking is, if the majority of the country was like that, think how much safer we would be from everything, from the bad guy, from whatever is coming into us,
well, I don't know how well it would work with Muslims who have no fear of death in a lot of cases, but I think a lot of them are even cowardly to begin with.
I don't believe that. I think people really don't want to die.
It's just the schmucks, basically, who they get to do the suicide bomb kind of thing.
Correct.
The losers of their society, and they have nothing to gain.
Or who have been severely brainwashed. But I really don't think people want to die.
And so I'm guessing.
Remember those 2 brothers from Boston? I don't think they wanted to die.
Right. Well, they didn't put themselves in a position where they would. I mean, they just happened to get caught.
Exactly. And then they ran away and hid in a boat or something. Remember that? For a long time?
I vaguely remember the details being weird. Yeah.
Right. So I really think people don't. I think people don't want to. Human beings don't want to die, and at the end of the day, they're human beings too.
Let's talk about what people can find at the Armed Jew Marketplace and at Jews Can Shoot, because you've been generously giving a lot of advice. But let's. At Jews
Can Shoot, I do a lot. I share a lot of commentary on the Second Amendment, on different ways to get trained. and I offer training as well.
And training in what? Is it weapons
in firearms,
or? Okay.
In firearms. And we also do webinars on exactly what you're talking about, situational awareness, what to do in a riot situation, what to do. There's one coming up, a 3-parter coming up in what to do in an active shooter situation. So all of it really comes down to situational awareness.
And it's easy to find that at Jews Can Shoot?
Yes. It should. We're going to be posting that in the next couple of days. The 3 dates for that 3 segments. The purpose behind the armed Jew marketplace is Jews have historically been we don't want to stand out. We don't want people to notice us. We don't want people to know. I call it the Schachtel mentality from Eastern Europe.
Right.
Some of your listeners may not know about that, but it's to be quiet. We should
it's not really the mentality here in Northeast Florida, because there are a lot of Sephardic Jews in the community here, but
it's the
totally
Ashkenazis,
different.
The Ashkenazis who are like that, and so I believe that if we walk around where people know that we are not victims, then we won't be victims.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean,
to me, it's as simple as that.
There is a different way in the way Jews who are armed and who have served in the Israeli army, especially, because there's plenty of that here too, carry themselves. It's something I can't help but notice. It's not the shtetl mentality. All right, any closing thoughts about the news or any other information about you that I should give out as we wrap up here?
Well, the news concerns me. I have to tell you, with what's going on right now, your next guest, David Goldman, wrote about it very well. So he can go right from me to him. And I'm hoping that that President Trump can be strong and stay focused on what he intends for this country, because I think he may not be he's not a politician and he's not experienced in that, but that's exactly why he was elected.
And he's not a quitter.
And he's definitely not a quitter, and he has a quality that I greatly admire. He doesn't care what people think about him.
Love it. Love it. I think you can probably relate, as I can certainly relate in that department too. Doris Wise, it's been great, and people should really check out one last time Jews Can Shoot, where there's a lot of webinars on there and other stuff that is worth your attention. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Adam.